Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the British TV series Ghosts. So let me repeat. I am going to be talking about the British TV version of Ghosts, not the US adaptation of Ghosts. So yeah, let's be clear there before you kind of get into this video, and you might be thinking you're listening to one review and you're not. So yeah, this is going to be talking about the UK version of Ghosts, I repeat. So yeah, and before I do start heading off into my thoughts and feelings on this show, I'm going to do my best to stay away from spoilers. This is going to be a full series discussion and review, but once again, I'm going to try to stay clear of spoilers as best I can and kind of just be rather vague, I suppose. And yeah, my hope is that if you have not checked out this series yet, I'm hoping that this review might push you to go check it out further, do your own deep dive. So yeah, let's get going. Like I said, this is going to be a review on the UK version of Ghosts, which is a British 30-minute comedy. And you guys, let me kind of start there with comedy. I am usually not really someone who watches a lot of comedy. I'm just really particular when it comes to comedy. Because I find a lot of comedy nowadays to just be really like overly vulgar at times, and that's just not really my type of humor. And yeah, I tend to prefer humor that has a bit more class and substance and style to it. Maybe that sounds a little snobby, but that's kind of just how I am. I like something just a little bit more substance and nuance to it. I'm a sucker for like pop culture type humor, like references. I'm really into things like that. And yeah, I do kind of, I think for me personally, because I just watch so much British television, I do think just my brain, the way my brain is just wired, I do find like British humor and British comedy much more up my alley, I suppose. Once again, maybe that's snobby of me, I don't know. So I'll kind of go from that, spin off from the comedy angle here. If you're someone like me and comedy isn't really your thing, I think this show might really strike a chord with you, and I definitely recommend giving this show a shot. I think it might kind of float your boat, kind of like me. But yeah, if you have no idea what the UK version of Ghosts is about, it's very similar to our US version. In the US version of Ghosts, it follows a young couple. They inherit a house. The young woman gets into an accident, and all of a sudden she can see ghosts, and she can communicate with them and whatnot. The UK version is the exact same way. The first several episodes of season 1 of the UK version kind of follow exactly in line like how the US version is. A young couple, they inherit a house. The young woman gets into an accident, and all of a sudden she can hear and see, communicate with dead people. It's great. So what you also need to know about this show, kind of giving you some background information, I suppose, this series, it is completely finished. It actually just recently finished in 2023, like fall of 2023. It ran from 2019 to fall of 2023, like I said. It had a total of 5 seasons, and it had like Christmas specials in between seasons. There was even a wonderful like Red Nose Day skit that I watched that had like Kylie Minogue in it, which was great. And I watched every bit of this show. You guys, I was hooked. I was obsessed. I loved every single minute. Like I said, I watched all 5 seasons. I watched every single Christmas special, including that hilarious Red Nose Day skit, which was just icing on the cake. Brilliant. I loved it. And seriously, I consider the Red Nose Day skit to be canon to this show. I think it is official canon. It has to be. Seriously, if you've never watched this show, at least go on YouTube and type in Ghosts UK Red Nose Day special, at least watch that. It's only 8 minutes. That'll give you a good idea of what to expect with this show. If you're kind of on the fence and you're unsure if you want to check out this show, at least go check out that skit, because it'll let you know everything you need to know about this show and how brilliant it is. And you guys, I am so upset that I just now did a full binge of this show. It's like a shame. This is the type of show I wish I could have been there from the very beginning, watching it year after year after year and having something enjoyable and fun to look forward to. And yeah, it's like the show is over, and I'm kind of sad about that I don't have like more episodes to enjoy. It's one of those type of shows that you watch a show after the fact because you hear so much about it and so much dialogue and people who love it. It's one of those shows that it's like you kind of have that jealous feeling, like, oh man, I finally watched this show and I finished it and there's no more. So I'm so devastated that I'm so late to watching this show, because it was absolutely brilliant, you guys. And the first 2 seasons of this show did air over here in America, and it did go for like a week by week basis. And yeah, it was airing over here in America mostly because of the writers' strike and the actors' strike. We had nothing on television, so over here in America, we bought it basically to kind of air as reruns, I suppose. And yeah, I'm kind of sad too that I don't know if the US, if we're going to go beyond the first 2 seasons. And yeah, for me, I was hooked with the first 2 seasons and I wanted to finish this show. So I did find a means, you guys, I did find a means to continue finishing this show, and I'm really glad I was able to finish it. Yeah, what an emotional journey, you guys. Oh my God. So what is it about this show that works? For me, I think what works about the show, it's fun, it's quirky, it's genuinely hilarious, and it genuinely has some truly heartfelt, emotional moments that kind of resonate with you and leave a deep impact, which I think sometimes comedy could be hit or miss with that. Some shows, some movies, they'll overly play into the comedy, and yeah, you walk out, you had a great laugh, it was enjoyable, but did you kind of get anything from it? And this is the type of show that I think you're going to get something out of it other than just the humor. You're going to get an emotional connection to these characters, to this world, and yeah, by the time you end that final episode, it's kind of like, oh, it's over. No, why? I want to spend more time with these people, because it's like they genuinely almost become like your family away from family in a weird sort of way. Now, this show does have very heavy adult humor, but I think the adult humor is done in such a way that I think it's still very family friendly. There's a lot of innuendo, let's say, a lot of heavy innuendo, a lot of like sexual references and whatnot. But once again, heavy in the innuendo, that I think it's still kind of family friendly enough that if you have, I think if you have a child at least over the age of 10, it should be perfectly fine to watch this show. you know, um, I don't know about any younger than that, because I think some of the jokes might just fly over a child's head, and I mean, it's up to you as a parent, obviously, the type of humor you think your child is comfortable with watching. But I do think this is a very family friendly show for the most part, that you can sit down, binge this show with your family, have a great time. And as I was mentioning before, I like comedy that can resonate with you and leave an emotional impact, other than just the comedy. So yeah, I think this show, it's definitely very thematic in its own ways, like the things that it's exploring and developing. Uh, it's a show about this woman who can communicate with dead people, after all. So you have that right there from the get-go. Yes, it's very hilarious. These people who've been dead for decades, they're able to talk to somebody, and obviously they come across as very immature and childish sometimes, and very annoying and aggravated and irritating. And all this young woman wants is for all these people to shut up. She just wants to have a moment to herself half the time. So you do have all those hilarious moments that just reach insanity on occasion. But I think just what works so wonderfully about this show. I think at its heart and core, it's definitely about grief and about death and whatnot. And this young woman, Allison, her name is Allison. She can communicate with the dead people. What Allison brings into this household, essentially, she's able to give all of the dead people, all the ghosts, she's able to give them all a new life within their afterlife. You know, even though they're all dead, they've been dead. There's no moving, around that fact. Once again, she's giving them a new sense of life and purpose within their afterlife. And in turn, what that provides in such wonderful, meaningful, deep ways for some of these characters, well, all of them really, it provides a means for these ghosts to reflect on their lives, reflect on the things that were great in their lives, the things that were terrible in their lives, really kind of deal with like ramifications from things that they did, like really get into their regrets within their lives. And this show, what's so great is each of the ghosts, all of them come from a different decade or a different century. Like one of the oldest characters on the show is a guy who died way back in the caveman era, And then, yeah, you have like some characters from like the Tudor era or World War II or the 80s or whatever, You have all of these characters from different eras and time periods. And it brings in a lot of nuance with history in this show. For the most part, this is an entirely contemporary show, and occasionally there are flashbacks into the lives of these characters. But when you do get the occasional flashback, what you see is kind of how they were tied into their era, like when you think of like the Victorian era, for instance, especially like women are very tied down by what society says you should be as a Victorian woman, where your places, your function in Victorian society, and yeah, these characters, they are no longer in their era. They're completely removed from their era, and they are no longer tied down by the things that used to tie them down. Things like their gender or their politics or their social status or their religion, things like that were just such huge, big, heavy deals back in centuries ago, and yeah, modern society is just much more open and accepting, hopefully, compared to previous centuries. So yeah, that's a big thing that a lot of these ghosts are learning. They don't have to be held down by what their time period used to say they had to do. So yeah, just kind of highlighting all of the characters really quickly. Once again, I'm not going to get into any spoilers. Our two main characters, we have Allison and Mike Cooper. They are the young couple who inherit this, I guess, this little mini mansion of sorts, this grand estate out in the English countryside. Allison and Mike are just such a wonderful couple on this show. They really work wonderfully together. They balance each other out quite wonderfully. I love their sense of humor. I like that Mike. I like that he kind of really easily and quickly accepts the fact that, hey, my wife, she can communicate with dead people, and that's okay, and Allison, like I was saying, Allison, a lot of times, she just wants things to be normal and functional, and here's all the ghosts around her. Nobody else can see these ghosts but her. And a lot of times the ghosts are just around her, being irritating and annoying, and she's maybe trying to have a conversation with somebody or trying to handle the situation, and they're all just there, completely swarming her headspace, and she can't even concentrate and focus on what she's supposed to be doing. So yeah, for the person who's talking to her at times will think she's acting weird, but in reality she's just speaking to the dead person next to her, trying to ignore them. So I loved Allison as a character. It's like you definitely sympathize with her plight on occasion when she just wants some peace and quiet. And then yeah, Mike being the husband who can't see these people, he can't communicate with them, but he believes his wife, and a lot of the times things are going on. Allison is yelling one of the ghosts, or the ghosts are doing something, and he's just kind of sitting there, just quietly, minding his own business, and maybe watching TV, or doing something on his computer or something, or his phone. So I just liked what Mike would do on any given occasion when the ghosts are all around. It's like sometimes if you just pay attention to him, it's pretty hilarious. And then another character we have Lady Button, or Fanny as she is called, and she's essentially related to Allison. This is how Allison even comes into possession of this house. It's kind of through her connection with this family line through the character of Fanny and whatnot. Lady Button was hilarious. She's a woman who comes from like kind of the late 1800s into the early 1900s. So she definitely has that really strong Victorian mindset and mentality. Like here's Allison, who's related to her, and Allison is a young modern woman who's wearing certain types of clothes, and she has like a nose piercing, and she colors her hair, and yet Lady Button is just not for that. It's wrong for a lady to be doing those things to her body. And then another character we have, Julian. He is a former politician. The backstory, how he died, is pretty hilarious, but it's like you kind of can predict it. If you watch news, you can kind of predict how Julian most likely died. Yeah, Julian at first was kind of one of the characters I didn't really particularly like that much, but it's like Julian, if you really watch him and pay attention to his personality and how he kind of develops over the course of the show, like Julian really you easily kind of warm up to Julian over the course of the show. At first you might not, but you do. And then we have Thomas. Thomas died during like the Regency era, and Thomas is definitely a huge parody of like the Romantic poets, especially like Lord Byron and whatnot. I absolutely adored Thomas, you guys. He's a little frightening on occasion. He is so obsessive with Allison. He's so attached to Allison. It's like, dude, give that girl some space. If he was alive, he'd be all in the news for like harassing a woman, so sexually harassing a woman. But it's like I can forgive Thomas's behavior. He's so endearing. I love him to bits. And then we have the captain. It's a big deal that the captain, you never learn his name, you guys, but you do eventually get it. I will promise you this: you will eventually learn the captain's name, but he is only ever called the captain. And he died during World War II, and perhaps not in the way that you're thinking, because I kind of had an idea maybe how he died, and the show kind of flipped my expectations of how he died, and I kind of liked it, I kind of didn't. I'm still a little kind of conflicted about that. Yeah, the captain, another big character trait with him. He is secretly gay, you guys. And you pretty much know that from the get-go with this show. Just little remarks that he makes. And I was always kind of wondering, kind of on this show, because to the audience watching, it's very obvious he's gay, and he's closeted for that matter. He's a soldier who died during World War II. Of course, that's something for him he feels shame about. And I think it's supposed to be that we, the audience, know that he's gay, but I think the other characters do too. I think they know as well, just nobody ever says anything. They just go with it and they accept it. But I think he acts like they don't know, but I think they do know. But yeah, I loved his character. And then we have Pat. He is the guy, maybe you've seen like posters and stuff. He's the guy who has like an arrow through his neck. And yeah, there's like the US equivalent of his character as well, because in the US version there's a guy with an arrow through his neck. Pat died in the 80s, and he was like kind of like, would it be called like the Boy Scouts? Is that kind of the same thing like in the UK, like in the US? He died. He was like a scout leader of some sort, and there was an accident involving an arrow, obviously, through his neck. Pat is probably the easiest character to like and enjoy from the get-go. He's the least irritating on occasion. He's the most rational, I think, and the most logical, and he's the most like eager to please. He wants to give people a chance and an opportunity. he's very honest and open and genuine, compared to everybody else around him who might not be so genuine on occasion, or they all have their quirks, but yeah, Pat is like the most honest and open, and like if you have an issue, you can go to him. And then we have Robin, the caveman. Obviously, he died back in prehistory, practically. um, his character, I didn't particularly care for Robin as a character either, but I definitely warmed to him over the course of the show. And I think by the time you get to the final episode, he's kind of one of those characters that in some ways he's the most tragic because he's been dead the longest and he's seen so many people die around him, and other ghosts like move on into the afterlife. So, yeah, even though he's one of the most comical, he's also one of the most tragic, unfortunately. And yeah, it does. It makes you wonder, why has he not moved on? Why is he still stuck here in this plane of existence? But yeah, I loved Robin as a character. I couldn't understand what he said half the time. It's like, do I need subtitles? But you know what? I think it's much more enjoyable. If you have no idea what he's saying, that's okay. It's kind of much more hilarious if you have no idea what he's saying. And then we have Kitty. She died in like the Georgian era, which is that after? Wait, is that after the Regency era? I'm trying to think. You know what? Is the Georgian era before or after the Regency era? I'm kind of having a bit of a mind blank right now. I want to say it's after the Regency. I could be mistaken about that. But yeah, Kitty. Once again, Kitty was kind of a character I didn't particularly care for either, but as the show went on and developed her more, I definitely fell in love with her character because at first Kitty really struck me as just, they had her overly stupid, I think. They had her overly kind of stupid and ignorant and naive, and I just felt like she whined so much, like she just was just too hyper for me. I think after the first two seasons, I think they got a better grasp on her character and kind of calmed her down a little bit, and they started fleshing her out and making her really interesting. She's kind of one of the more interesting characters in some ways, especially like how she died and whatnot, what her backstory is, which is really sad. So yeah, Kitty, by season 3, I definitely started falling in love with Kitty's character. And then we have Mary. Mary died maybe the 1600s, I'm guessing, at the heights of the witch hysteria. I'm assuming maybe they're in the 1600s. Mary was burned as a witch. And you don't learn for a very long time kind of how it came to be, the process of how it came to be that she eventually got burned as a witch. You know that she got burned as a witch, because she's covered in soot, and occasionally like flames might come out of her or smoke might come out of her, and yeah, if living people step through her, you can smell the smoke all of a sudden, which is pretty hilarious. I loved Mary, you guys. She was just she was like, just a woman of her time period, part of kind of like just the heavy religious nature, and being a farmer, working on the land, and yes, she wasn't educated at all. So a lot of the comedy with her is definitely playing into the era that she comes from, that she's ill-educated and she can't read, she can't write. Yeah, because like Allison at one point wants Mary to help her do something, cheats at a game of cards, and Mary can't read, she has to describe the pictures as they look to her. But yeah, Mary was really hilarious and funny. I loved her. She was very sweet. She was very, very sweet and kind of shy in her own manner. I loved her. And then one of the last characters we have, hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody here, we have Humphrey. Humphrey comes from the Tudor era, more specifically like the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. And you will notice immediately Humphrey has no head. He has like two whole things going on. He has his head, which can communicate, but it can't really move around. A lot of times when you see Humphrey, his head is like leaning to the side, just somewhere, he's like, oh yeah, hi guys. And then there's also Humphrey's body, which has like a life of its own that will just wander around doing God knows what. So I loved the character of Humphrey. They definitely started doing a lot more with Humphrey, I think, after those first two seasons, and really kind of establishing and putting him further into the narrative and doing a lot of interesting things with him. And yeah, fun fact, I did not realize this at first, you guys, but the character of Humphrey and the character of Robin are both played by the same actor. And then another fun fact, I didn't realize this either until I had been looking up some trivia. There's like a bunch of ghosts down in like the basement of the mansion, and they're like all plague ghosts. They all died during the plague, and they were buried in like a plague pit, if you will. And all of the plague ghosts are all of the same actors who are playing, you know, the main ghosts and whatnot. I didn't realize that. I feel kind of stupid now that I didn't realize that immediately. I didn't realize it until like after watching season 2, and then I was like, oh, they all do look alike, don't they? Just with different hair, makeup, and then yeah, all the plague, you know, issues all over their face. So yeah, do I have a favorite character or characters? I think I do. Now, here's the thing. I think you can go into this show and you're definitely going to love every character. Even if it takes you a while to warm up to all of these characters, I think for the most part, you're going to love every single character. You're going to fall in love with every single character. You're going to be there on this wonderful emotional ride with all these characters. But yeah, I do. I definitely have my favorites. I definitely like, I think the captain and Thomas are easily my two favorite characters. Why? I'm not quite sure. I just really liked their arcs and their brand of humor, I suppose. But yeah, I'm definitely curious, you guys, if you have particular favorite characters and who are they. Like I said, even if you love every single one, I'm sure you have a favorite. And is that all? I think that's pretty much all I want to say about this show. I've been talking for almost 30 minutes here. I can't recommend Ghosts UK enough. If you're an American like me and you have been enjoying the US version of Ghosts, I definitely highly recommend you check out Ghosts UK. It might take you a little while to kind of warm up to the characters, because that was kind of my initial problem when I was watching the first 2 seasons, especially. It took me a little while to kind of really kind of get with the characters, you know, and kind of vibe with them, if you will. But yeah, I think like starting with season 3, definitely, you know, you start getting a lot of these really great emotional arcs and stories going on with these characters. And there were definitely probably a good 3 or 4 episodes the entire run of the show that brought me to actual tears, you guys, where I would have to literally pause what I was watching and grab some tissues. And you might know one of them, if you have seen the show, you might know which one specifically I might be talking about. That one really got me going. I want to talk about it so bad, but I can't spoil anything. But yeah, I definitely recommend giving the show a shot. Find it however you will. If you can, um, if you have a VPN, for instance, you can log into a British channel that way through like a VPN to watch the show, or yeah, the DVD, buy the DVD. Yeah, watch the show however you can. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on UK Ghosts. I love this show. It was amazing, genuinely hilarious, genuinely emotional, like such a wonderful dynamic group of actors. It's like I wish the show could just go on and on and on for like years, because I'm sure there's so many stories they could tell. And yeah, the ending of the show, you guys, oh my god, once again, if you have seen the show, we have got to talk about that ending. Whoo! So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on the UK version of Ghosts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.